Hello, I'm Maureen Welch with Navigating Disability Colorado, and today we have Tiffany Fixter here from Brew-ability and Pizza-ability. And I like to host people who support the Navigating Disability Colorado community. So today we're going to learn more about Brew-ability. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Brew-ability and what you do?
So I am the founder of Brew-ability. We are an inclusive brewery and pizzeria located in downtown Englewood. I currently have 26 staff with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That includes people that are blind, deaf, have autism, Down syndrome, and terminal illness.
Wonderful. Well, the one thing that I share with Tiffany is that I'm a recovering special ed teacher too. So maybe she can tell me a little bit about what brought her to found Brew-ability.
Yeah, so I'm obviously a special ed teacher as well, or was. And then I moved from Kansas City to run an adult day program and figured out there's a severe lack of employment opportunities. And so when I was let go due to lack of creativity, I started the most creative thing I could think of, which was a brewery.
That's great. Now, I understand you also serve pizza.
Yes. We just got the number 5 spot in the United States.
Wow. And they also just were awarded some funding from Barclays Bank. Tell us about that competition.
Yeah, so it was a national competition. We're really grateful to receive a $20,000 grant that can just help us maintain operations because right now with the economy, it's been a little tough.
Wonderful. So one thing that we like to talk about at Navigating Disability Colorado is how there's opportunity for our community in employment and independent living and education. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about maybe how waivers help your employees be engaged in the community and work in the community.
I think almost everyone on my staff is on a waiver. Everybody has different situations for living. Some people live in host homes, some people live independently, and some people still reside with their parents. I just make sure that I go to the service plan meetings and I'm aware of what each person needs and how much they can work, how much they can make, so that we don't mess up their services.
Right. Now, I understand that you do not work with job coaches. You do all your job coaching on
That's correct.
By your staff. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we use a variety of techniques. Obviously, we were both special educators, and so we have visual task strips everywhere. We have video modeling, really just a lot of systems in place to make sure that our employees can be as independent as possible.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about the actual manufacturing? So you do the beer on site?
Yeah.
You have staff that are trained to do that?
Yes. So our last assistant brewer went on to be the head brewer of Bent Barley. He just won a couple awards. So he is fully independent. And that's our hope for the next few that we're training up through the system, that they can learn all the skills to be safe and effective brewers and then move on to various breweries in our community.
And the pizza portion used to be a separate business and you've merged two businesses. Is that correct? So they're all on one site now?
Yes. Yeah. I was leasing in Northeast Denver, the brewery, and then the pizzeria was in Cherry Creek. And both were really difficult locations for different reasons. So the brewery, there really was no signage. And then Cherry Creek, unfortunately, the community just didn't quite accept us.
Their loss.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Well, in Englewood, you've been celebrated and lauded, and I know that everyone looks to Brew-ability as a model for employment and building skills. And I'm just curious, when you look at the Colorado landscape, perhaps compared to Kansas City, like what do you see that's lacking? Or maybe you can compare and give us ideas on what you think solutions are for creating more employment.
There are a lot of restaurants that are needing workers, but there's this barrier where they're hesitant because of public perception around cleanliness and just being around food. And so I think, that's what we're trying to work to fight against and prove that, yes, not only can they make good pizza, they can make great pizza.
And gluten-free.
Yes. Yeah. And so
I've had their pizza. It's good.
Thanks. If more restaurant owners were to consider hiring some of our population, they would be extremely thrilled because then you have a dedicated staff of hard workers.
Have you had employees transition from Brew-ability to other workplaces, or do they primarily love it so much that they don't want to leave?
Unfortunately, yes. With nobody really wants to leave. So we have a very long waiting list, and I would love to provide more jobs. It's just, you can only hire so many people.
So maybe you can tell the community about your other events you offer at Brew-ability.
Yeah, so we try to have a variety. On Tuesdays, we do trivia. Wednesdays, we do music video bingo. On Thursdays, I try to have a solo. And then we do bands. We're going to start doing wrestling on the patio with, with semi-pro wrestlers. Just really talking with our community and seeing what kind of events they want. So we bring in a lot of therapy animals. I do a ton of fundraisers.
Right. And I've read a story recently on your social media about families who feel it's a good place to come when perhaps their children typically don't feel like they might be welcomed in other settings. Can you tell us about the consumer or the family experience coming to dine?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have several families. This is the only place their kids will eat. We have an automatic door opener, and then we have a sensory room when you come in. So there's a deep-seated couch. We have wiggle seats, noise-canceling headphones for children and adults, a variety of fidgets. And then as far as ordering goes, we have large print menus, braille menus, and picture-based menus, and that can help anyone of any ability. And so we try to have things structured so that everyone feels welcome in our space.
Great. And then I heard something about your food accessibility kits that you're developing.
Yeah. So it's in the works, but we want other restaurants to be accessible. And so came up with Dineability, where we're curating kits and then selling them to restaurants.
And tell us about the kits. What are in them?
So weighted silverware, plate guards. We're looking at adapting dining scarves, just things that don't look too out of the norm, but are things that people need to eat independently.
Sort of assisted technology for eating.
Yeah.
People think of tech as computers.
Yeah, it's low tech.
It's low tech.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent.
But it's still really important.
Wonderful. And what do you want people to know about the employees that you have personal relationships with? Like as a small business owner and employees, I'd like that people to understand that. What is the experience for you to have employees that have intellectual and developmental disabilities?
Every day they're coming in. I mean, not every day everyone's happy, but for the most part, I think people really have a positive attitude. And it's nice to see the relationship between our staff and some of the customers that come in with disabilities. And it just really, there's an understanding there. And so we've just created this beautiful community space. And it's fun to see it thrive.
So Tiffany, why don't you tell us a little bit about your Friday work experience that you offer to the community?
Yeah, so we got a grant through Daniel's Fund to support middle schools, high schools, transition programs, and adult day programs to come in and experience what it's like to work in a restaurant. So they come in and we assign different opening and cleaning tasks, and we talk about what it's like to work in food service and then the basic rules of the kitchen. So we do a deodorant pit check. We make sure everyone has their hair tied back. We talk about cleanliness and being hygienic when you're working around food. And then each person gets to go in with our chefs and make their own pizza. And then they get to eat the pizza. They have social and sensory time. We do a mock interview, and then they just get to have fun.
And how many students or individuals can come on one of those outings?
So last year, we served over 521 individuals, and we're looking to do more this year.
And do they come in groups of 20 or less, or like
20 or less? Yeah.
I just want to, in case there's teachers out there.
Yeah, we do. We try to have smaller groups so we can have individualized attention. And just from last year, it's been really interesting, just the different communication styles. And so we've come up with communication tags. And so they'll wear lanyards to say if they use ASL or if they're non-speaking. And so that way, or if they're bilingual or Spanish only. So that way we can communicate effectively with each individual.
Wow, that's wonderful. And then you also host a lot of events there, like you said, fundraisers and events. However, there is one for providers, people that work in this community. It's called the Pasco Networking Event.
Yes, it's the second Thursday of every month, and Pasco hosts it. And you just sign up on their website, and there's free food and drink, and it is just a blast networking with everyone, and it's nice to be in a room of people that understand what we do.
They get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been wonderful having Tiffany here with us today. And I encourage those of you who have not been to Brew-ability and Pizzeability to go check it out. And it's wonderful in the summer. They even have a patio, but year-round, it's a great destination. So maybe you want to share where you're located in parking situations, things like that.
Yeah. So we are located in downtown Englewood at 3445 South Broadway. And there are several bus stops nearby. There's public transportation through the light rail, and we have street parking is free, and directly across the street behind Breakfast Queen, there's an entire lot that spans the 3400 block.
And there's no charge for that parking. So make sure you get over and have a cold drink and some pizza.
Would love to have you. Thanks, Maureen.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.